Hello friend, I want to tell you about the Ford Focus car. The Ford Focus is a favorite of large fleets, and one of its known features is reliability. This modern car is appearing on the secondary market in increasing numbers. Those who have driven compacts of earlier generations and want to choose a newer model can safely aim for the refined model from Ford. The Ford Focus is eager to find buyers regardless of generation. The former pleases people who value good driving characteristics, while the latter pleases those looking for a cheap car without major flaws, which is not only great to drive, but is based on reliable technology. The Focus Mk3 can easily compete in each of the above areas, but unfortunately it has lost some of its functionality. The interior is no longer as spacious as in the Mk-E, at least you don't get that sense of spaciousness. The space has been taken up primarily by the greatly expanded dashboard, which forces the people sitting in the front to move back. Then the couch becomes a bit cramped. Engines. The Ford Focus Mk3 used a wide range of engines, but customers limited their choice to a few. For example, it is difficult to find a 2-liter petrol on the market because it was offered in North America. It is also difficult to find a 2-liter diesel because it was expensive. Much more popular are the smaller 1.6 TDCi diesel engines, with a power range starting at 95 hydrogen phosphide, then 105 hydrogen phosphide, and finally 115 HP. Both diesel-powered units were created in partnership with PSA, although they are not entirely identical to those installed in Citroëns and Peugeots. The petrol engines include the starting 1.6 Duratec with 105 or 125 HP and an alternative to it, in the form of a 1-liter, 3-cylinder turbocharged EcoBoost generating 100 or 125 HP. The most dynamic Focus in the range was, apart from the ST version, the 1.6 EcoBoost version, generating 150 or 182 HP. Under the hood of the Focus ST there was a 2.0 EcoBoost engine with 250 hydrogen phosphide, but we will not deal with this version. Which engine to choose? For those who buy a car with a mileage of over 200,000 kilometers for a longer period of time, we recommend the durable 1.6 Duratec petrol unit. It is a safe choice. The engine can be repaired cheaply, and there is no need to worry about the technology, which a typical workshop would not be able to handle. The design developed together with Yamaha does have TVCT variable valve timing, but this system does not cause any problems. The naturally aspirated version did not use direct injection. It is worth remembering to check the valve clearances and replace the timing belt every 160,000 kilometers. The development of the Duratec design is EcoBoost. The capacity is the same, but turbocharging and direct injection have completely changed the face of the engine. It is not only dynamic, but can also be economical. In the 182 horsepower version, the Focus becomes a GT class car, of course among compacts. However, the 150 horsepower version is very pleasant and has good elasticity. It generates 270 Nm at 1,600 revolutions per minute, which allows for economical, although not at all slow driving. With the right style, it can be less fuel-hungry than the weaker Duratec. And what about faults? There are currently no complaints about the EcoBoost, although there are occasional users who have had their map sensor replaced. The only recurring complaint is the incorrectly functioning software controlling the engine. Despite this version can be sincerely recommended. However, you should be careful with the 1.0 EcoBoost unit. It is very reliable and basically causes no problems, apart from occasional sensor failures or engine control software freezes. However, you should remember that its service life has been set at around 240 to 260,000 kilometers. If the mileage exceeds 200,000 kilometers, you have to reckon with potential failures resulting from wear and tear. Sometimes, coolant leaks occur on the pipe from the expansion tank. Anyone who missed this failure could later have a problem with a deformed engine housing. Remember that despite turbocharging and good dynamics, The 1.0 EcoBoost engine is a typical downsizing unit, and its domain is to work with a small load, gently and calmly. Then you can enjoy not only flexibility, but also low fuel consumption and reliability. During dynamic driving, the Duratec is more economical and better suited to tormenting. When choosing between petrol engines, naturally aspirated and supercharged, the model's history should be the most important factor. We recommend Duratec for cars not serviced at authorized service centers and those with higher mileage. With EcoBoost, it's best to have a full service history and mileage no greater than 140 to 160,000 kilometers. It's worth remembering to change the oil in EcoBoosts to the one recommended by the manufacturer. Ford recommends Ford Castrol Magnatec Professional A55W30, and it's best to stick to that. As for diesel engines, it is of course best to choose a 2-liter, regardless of the version, but it is not easy, because there are few of them. The engine is free from defects and should easily cover a distance of 300,000 kilometers without major problems. The DPF filter can cause these problems at most. It is easier to buy a 1.6 TDCi. In its case, we do not recommend the 95 horsepower version, which does not provide the car with the appropriate dynamics. Unless you plan to drive calmly and mainly in the city, the remaining 105 and 115 horsepower versions give as much as the technical data indicates. They are suitable for everyday driving and have a low fuel appetite, but you shouldn't expect lightning performance from them. They perform great both on the road, pleasant flexibility, and in the city, but unfortunately they struggle with clogged DPF filters. You can burn them out at a service center, and also try to find a replacement. The Focus Mk3 doesn't like electronic modifications, so even if it were legal, we wouldn't recommend cutting out the filter. The fuel filter can also cause problems, especially in winter. Apart from the above, the 1.6 diesel engine is free from technical defects and can easily cover 200,000 kilometers without failure. After this mileage, the manufacturer recommends replacing the timing belt. It does not break, however. We recommend replacing all the mating rollers and the complete engine accessory drive with the crankshaft pulley along with it. What's broken? In general, the Ford Focus is not a car that is prone to failure and is not plagued by typical problems, apart from one, oil leaks from the gearbox, near the right half shaft. This only applies to 6-speed manual gearboxes. Most users do not complain about automatics. Occasionally, there is a failure of the radio or electric windows. In older cars, interior elements usually make noise. Some users complain about the suspension creaking when overcoming larger bumps. Usually, it is enough to wash the undercarriage. After winter, it is also worth checking the louvers that cover the grille in order to reach the right engine temperature faster. Dirty ones can hang and remain closed. The suspension system can withstand 100,000 kilometers without servicing. Then you need to replace the stabilizer links and sometimes one of the wishbones, especially at the rear. We advise you to approach the issue comprehensively and replace the wishbones in pairs, and after each such repair, set the suspension geometry. The corrosion in the Focus Mk3 is to be found primarily in the chassis. However, its level is not such that it could be a cause for concern. The maintenance costs of the Focus are not high, and even lower than in the case of the vast majority of other compact cars of the period. The only problem may be the availability of non-standard parts for EcoBoost engines. It is worth remembering that in wholesalers of replacements you can buy motorcraft elements, which are original parts, but cheaper than in ASO. Despite everything, they are still quite expensive. For example, the front suspension arm costs a lot, which is not an attractive price for a compact. There are two versions, steel and aluminum. In the first one, you can replace only the pin, in the second one you cannot. Initially, the model impressed with high positions in reliability rankings, but now it is not so great. 4 to 5-year-old models are definitely below average in the TÜV ranking. The fuel consumption of smaller diesels is similar, regardless of power, and is around 5 to 6 L, 100 km. The 1-liter EcoBoost will also burn this much, but on condition that we drive economically. The 1.6 Duratec should be satisfied with 6 to 7 L of fuel for every 100 kilometers. On the other hand, with a dynamic driving style, the EcoBoost effortlessly absorbs 9 to 10 L, 100 kilometers, while the Duratec rarely exceeds 9. Ford Focus Mk3 is a car that should not be left without protection against theft. It is best to buy insurance, because as we have already mentioned, this model does not like interference with the electrical system. The good news is that the car's depreciation is low. In our opinion, yes. Although the Focus is certainly not the best compact, because it lacks spaciousness and the build quality is average, it is highly valued on the secondary market. No wonder, because it is not far from perfect, and the costs of purchase and maintenance are not high. Thanks for listening to me. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and rate my video. If you know of any problems with this car that I didn't mention, be sure to write about them in the comments.
I have good news for you. Now, if you are planning to buy a used car, or learn more about your car, you no longer need to search for the information you need on the internet. We have collected everything in one place for you, on the website carme.pro. Here you can find out everything about the car, what breaks and at what mileage, any problems with engines, chassis or gearboxes, which trim levels are better not to mess with, and how not to lose money buying a used car. You will learn all this on carme.pro.